Nira Radia specifically chose you
She's saying
as a courier, as it were, between the DMK and the Congress.
Did
it suggest a special relationship of any form?
No, absolutely not. My, in fact, engagement with Nira Radia was, like many other journalists in this country, began because she was the right-hand, sort of visible route to Ratan Tata. And she had, fixed up interviews for Ratan Tata in the past a few times. That is how I knew her. You say, why did she choose me? Very interesting question. Open, of course, was much more selective in the conversations they printed. Outlook uploaded 104 tapes, of which I counted about 30 journalists, okay? In different contexts, having all kinds of conversations, and I don't speak for anybody else. I'm not sitting here to pass judgment on anybody. I speak only for myself. On gas and oil, she is speaking to a host of people. It's not like I'm some... Please do not suggest that I am this chosen person, the only journalist in the country whom Nira Radia called to speak.
No, but for the messages
I think her essential equation may have been with business journalists because of the space that she occupied. And I think that in a political formation story, she probably felt, I do not know that she didn't call anybody else. We do not have all the tapes. Please remember, we do not have all the tapes.
But she cites your name. She cites your name. I spoke to her.
Can I understand what I'm being accused of?
No, you're not being accused of anything yet. No, I have to come back to this.
No, what am I? Let everyone speak. Let everyone speak on this thing. It's very important to establish the accusation.
Right,
no, I think we are diluting the sense of question.
All right. We just have this.
Barkha, listen. As a journalist, you naturally tend to be skeptical of whatever people tell you.
Yes.
I didn't get any sense of skepticism in the conversation that we just heard, because you played along, number one. Number two...
That's not unusual. I can corroborate. I'd like to respond to that.
No, so let me finish.
Okay, complete.
Secondly, I think you mentioned earlier that your colleagues were talking to Balu because they knew this and that and so on. That is a very different matter than talking to a PR person representing two major corporate houses, because her interest is quite unlike your journalistic interest. Her interest is business driven. Your interest is journalistic driven. Now, I see a mismatch, all right, between the two. I doubtless belong to the old school, but we never ever allowed any PR person to come anywhere near the editorial room.
Okay.
But that is secondary to the important question which I'm trying to ask you, which you have not answered.
I have answered that.
No,
I did not think that was a major story. That's an issue of judgment, not an issue of corruption.
Correct. I do not buy...
Please try and distinguish between those two.
No, I do not buy that argument, because here it is very important to know that this is a corporate person who's trying to mediate between two political parties. And you're saying that you missed this story because of an error of judgment.
No, I didn't say that. My error of judgment was not in regard to that decision.
So
I'm sorry.
Why did you report that story? No, why didn't you report that story is my question, which you have not answered.
I have answered by saying I didn't think it was that big a story.
You didn't think that it was that big a story?
No, I didn't. I didn't think it was that big a story.
I believe that is the biggest story of the decade.
Perhaps. But that's a debate about judgment. I don't call up open and say, why did you do this story and why didn't you do that story? That's not a debate on corruption.
So Barkha, what you're saying... No, let me understand you correctly. What you're saying is that you did not think that the fact that a PR person was mediating between two political parties is an important story. Is that what you're saying?
I think, forgive me for saying so, but I don't think you have a full understanding of how political journalism and politics works, okay?
No, I can take lessons from you later, but can you just ask me why you did not
How many times am I going to answer the same question?
Because you're saying that you didn't think it was a big story.
Manu, we're not in a court of law, and I haven't committed a crime, nor have many other people on those tapes that you published.
I'm not saying I'm morally superior to you, but I'm saying you've not answered the question.
Sure, but she's answered by saying error of judgment. Now, you are free to believe that or not. But if you're saying it's not error of judgment, then what do you see it as? Corruption.
Judgment can happen in 2009. The story again broke in 2010. NDTV did not report, even in 2010, that a person called Nira Radia was mediating between two political parties. So it was an error of judgment in 2009 and 2010.
It is such a gross distortion to say that a lobbyist was mediating between two parties. I am sorry, Manu, please forgive me for this, but this is not how cabinets are formed. I find there's a complete exaggeration to suggest that lobbyists influence the Prime Minister's choice.
No.
I do not believe that happened here for even a second.
Nor do journalists.
Nor do journalists. I'm glad to hear that. So think of that before you label them the next
Exactly. But what I'm trying to say is now this is a person who is very...
Okay, I think...
No, but...
if you want to move on from the question, it's all right. But I have to place on record that you have not answered it.
I think let us...
It is very unconvincing for an editor of a news channel to say that this is not a story.
Let us accept...
Any cub reporter will say that this is the story of the decade.
Well, we look forward to seeing the story at open next.
Barkha, Manu, let us just take the point. Let's see Barkha's side of it. I am a managing editor of NDTV, so I also have an interest in it. Let me just make the point that she has said error of judgment, and your tapes do not show that she's actually reached any political party. The furthest she's reached is Barkha, and her claim of Kani Mori.
No, that only Barkha knows.
So
let's not forget. In some of the transcript, now Raja has more information than Barkha.
Anyway, let us open.
I want to ask the editor.
Can you ask you some questions
that this is not a great
story? So Barkha, let us go to Mr. Padgaonkar.
Would you be able to defend? Excuse me. You sent me an SMS message. You're talking about ethics of journalism. Firstly, you take raw data. You take raw data and you publish it without context, without talking to the principals, without any follow-ups. A, when I write you an SMS saying this sounds like a smear campaign, you send me an SMS back saying there's nothing remarkable in your conversations, you will not be embarrassed, and then you go further to say, I am personally unhappy that the word go between was used for you in the strap. You are an editor, you're questioning my judgment. As I should. You publish my private conversations. How do you defend? How do you defend the ethics that you follow in this story?
I can answer all your questions, and I promise I'll answer all these questions. But you have not answered. You have not answered the central question.
Manu, we'll have to end with it saying that you feel you didn't answer it.
No, that is not enough. It's an error of judgment of enormous proportion.
But Manu, that is your view. She said no.
I can answer you.
Please do. But that is your view. So we've accepted that you feel this. She feels differently. But we have to leave it at that point.
There are two questions.
I just want to come in here to say something.
Yes.
If this is a genuine debate about media ethics, which is a very welcome debate. If this is a debate over in what situations are people too close to their sources, should there be more distance, I think that's very well taken. I think that's accepted. I think I've acknowledged that. I've put that on the table. But if this is a debate about media ethics, the ethics debate must expand to look at the style of journalism that has been employed by both of these magazines, that have taken raw material without context, without verification, without corroboration, and used it to smear personal reputation.
No, that was not
I think, Manu, we have to let this to other editors as well.
Barkha, I get a lot of calls from people who say, can you pass this message on to the BJP, etc., to this leader? Because in the public perception, I am seen to be someone very close to the BJP. Now, does it suggest that in terms of someone asking you to pass on messages to the Congress, it's not so much corruption or 2G, but an expression of what the perceived political bias is, and hence all the controversy?
In the viewer's mind? Or
in the minds of the, even in the minds of the PR.
Swapan,
is there a particular cozy relationship you have with the Congress which allows Nira Radia to ask such a question?
Okay, that's an interesting question. And my answer to it would be that because I believe that I am a good journalist, I believe if this were a story about the NDA coming to power, I think I would still have a sense of what was happening inside the BJP. I think as a political journalist, somebody with an interest may call me to say, kya ho raha hai BJP mein? And if she was providing me or he was providing me khabar of what was happening with, let's say, Jayalalitha, let's imagine this scenario, that it was a different scenario. If she was providing me that information, I would have done this trading of information that I did. I have no hesitation, I've now said it about 4 times, that when I look back at it, I believe I was not careful in how I dealt with her. I believe that and I get many such calls. We're isolating Nira Radia because it's become an emotive issue related to Raja. I can tell you as an editor, Sanjay, I get calls every day from politicians saying, can you drop this story? Can you play this up? The foreign ministry takes written questions right now from journalists before they're allowed to be asked at press conferences. There are ethical issues raised by junkets. There are all of these pressures, and usually the way to deal with them was to fob them off and say, haan kar lenge, and put the phone down, which is what I did here. Having learned from this, I have no hesitation in saying that I have learned from this enough to know that next time if somebody, especially if somebody has a special interest, I would look at it again and be very, very careful of what I say. But beyond that, I will not accept that I did anything more grievously wrong than that. I will not accept that, and I will not apologize for anything beyond that.
Okay, we are nearly out of time for 10 minutes left. So I'm going to actually just do a round of the table, let each of you all ask your final questions and answers. So let's start again with you, Mr. Padgaonkar.
Well, let me reiterate what I began with. I think in this business, no one is absolutely lily white. There is something or the other that happens and has been happening in this profession. But there comes a time when you know when the lines begin to blur. The impression one got on reading this raw data in these two magazines is the lines were blurred.
Yeah.
That is the general impression. And they were blurred because wittingly or otherwise, the feeling was that one was playing along. Now, the argument, which is yours, that you played along because you wanted information and insight. That was your interest. That's not how it's perceived to be. What it's perceived to be is that, in fact, you were chosen because you had access to a certain number of people who could influence a certain decision. All right. I think that perception now, what does it mean? It really means it is best to take one's distance, really, from those in power, because unless one is skeptical about what they tell you, it is one thing for a politician to talk to you. It is something else when a corporate PR does it. Okay, this is the overall thing. But mind you, please, you know, this is not the first time that we are having to debate this question.
Why haven't, since I think I must have a right to reply because neither magazine gave me that, why haven't we heard from any of you stalwarts of our profession, question the ethics of reporting raw material without talking to the principals, without corroboration, without follow-up? At NDTV, had we got these tapes, even without me on them, we would never have used them. I take your point about the lines. I'm saying, first to your first point, I take your point. There are innocent mistakes, misjudgments that we all make as editors. Does that give a magazine a right to accuse a journalist of corruption? Are you all questioning and expanding this ethics debate to question the style and the ethics of journalism that have been employed?
Barkha, listen, overall, I'm not at all in favor of using this raw material. We are having a large debate of the WikiLeaks as well.
Yeah.
So I don't bring that in. But let me tell you something. I am not in favor of getting this raw material, primarily because I don't know why things were leaked, why this timing was chosen, etc. Those questions need to be answered. And there is investigation going on at different levels. The question once again...
And why only me? Why there are 40 journalists on the tape? Why am I only being... Your Swapan said, why am I the person chosen? Where are the other journalists? Have you heard this conversation?
Right.
I'm not equating your...
Barkha, let's get...
No, but I just want to raise this point. Where are the others?
Why cannot the balance point? But let's put Mr. Bagav and then Mr.
I think Swapan is right to ask the question, primarily because I know of editors of certain channels who were never ever contacted by Ms. Radia. And I wonder why.
And how do you know? Have you gone through all the tapes? Almost everybody who's anybody in the world of journalism is on that tape. But yet, the face of it, the metaphor for it has become me. Although, I'm sorry, you've put me on a hoarding.
No, that is...
You've put me on a hoarding. I bet it sells your magazine better than the people who are in rich, basically. That's what it is. I sell your magazine for you, so you need to...
Let's just go to Mr. Baru next. Mr. Baru, yes.
We need to answer that.